Shabbos Pashas Vayikra, Pashas HaChodesh, Hachodesh ניסן, the first Maimer Tavshich Dalet. The first part of the Maimer I can see is what we learned already, so I'll move through it very quickly to repeat, largely with a few pratim that I was adding over here. Okay, let's see. Hachodesh Lochem Reish Chodosh, and he says this week, Pashas HaChodesh. Anna, could I ask you to close the door, please, if you don't mind? Thank you. So this month, that's the first mitzvah, the Tayag mitzvahs, that this month be your first month. Because the 10th day of the month, Yidna commanded, each one should take a sheep for his house. They hold it, you watch over it, inspect it for 4 days, till the 14th day of this very month, and then the V'shachat said it should be shechted and eaten, and that was the first Seder in history. The next morning, the next morning was Yetzias Mitzrayim on the 15th day of the month. This whole process of Geula, of Korban Pesach, and the actual Yetzias Mitzrayim begins with Hachodesh. Hachodesh Hazeh Lochem. This Chodesh should be for you, reckoned as month number 1 of your calendar forever. Shabai Kol Hemshech Yonim. Chodesh includes everything which follows Ad Lo Inyan Yetzias Mitzrayim. We see this in the Psukim, that this all begins with Hachodesh Hazeh Lochem Reish Chodosh. So what's the Inyan here? What's the Inyan? The Reish Chodesh, it all has to begin with Hachodesh ניסן, and from there everything unfolds and develops and is revealed. The explanation is what is the Ma'ala that Yetzias Mitzrayim brought to the world over creation? Or Inyan Gilu Shem Havaya. Shem Havaya. And this is what's said in the Torah. Beginning of the whole story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Hashem says to Moishe, they not having Yetzias Mitzrayim did not have Hashem Havaya. But therefore, therefore tell Yidden what's coming now is Ani Havaya, and I'll take you out in the full Lashonos of Geula. Haido, which corresponds, as we said in the previous Maimer, the Daldaishas of Shem Havaya. The whole Gulas Mitzrayim was the Chidush of Shem, the revelation of Shem Havaya. What is the Inyan? This was all explained in the previous Maimer. Creation, creation, and the creation and bringing to being of the world through Shem Elikim Shemidas Hatzimtzum Vahelem. Hashem did so by concealing Himself. And therefore we need to break these boundaries. Gilu Shem Havaya, to break the boundaries of nature created at the outset of creation. Shaddai, that Shem Havaya is even higher than the Gilu of Kel Shaddai. There wasn't as Gala to the others. That Kel Shindal Jud, yes, but not Shem Havaya. The Prat Yisrael said, Shem Shaddai Gufa Yeshna In Sheshayich Lebri Yisrael. There's 2 levels. There's the Inyan of, he's answering a question for us. Aren't you lucky? What's that? Huh? Yeah, but he's not using the language from the Megillah. I still want you to come to tell me that. He's not explaining what, he just states the statement of fact, but what exactly is the difference between creation and what Avram discovered? Doesn't say what it is, it's a higher level. And he says it's reflected in the 2 Pirushim, which Bemes, it's there, but again, I want you to, okay, you got the mandate. So there is the 3 lines in the bottom. The first Pirush is Shamarti I said enough to my world. Because he created the world was in a state of expansion. He shouted at it. HaKadosh stopped it. Next page, even though on the one hand, why would the world be expanding endlessly when it's created through Shem Elikim, which is Tzimtzum, which is contraction and Akbala? The Kamakim statement of fact, let's continue to expand, and we explained that also. in the previous shiurim. Lochem ''hetשכ shel Akbal," and therefore they had to be what? They had to limit it. He said to my world, enough, that's far no further. Pirush base a second Pirush die belikusi lechol berya, that have sufficient divine divinity for every creation. Shazel kamay day machsad is sufficient to fill his lack, which that means more than the limit. Shabazen nichlal, in theory, it could be afilul sus lilchayvolav vevet loros tefanav, that you could provide for him. What's the limit? Not in theory, that's the mitzvah. See, if he's a person who was accustomed, this poor person, having a horse running in front of him, and they rode on, and a servant that ran before him, you have to provide that for him. In other words, even this wealth, if that's what he was used to, such a big hakbala, I mean, to say such a big amount of provision. If you say to him, moreover, even higher, as I said, the psukim were actually, here he says it for us. The psukim we quoted earlier, not another raya, but each one was higher. So we see it here. So we say to him that you're endlessly saying enough. Actually, if they say that your lips will become worn out from saying enough. The word enough itself is pointing toward the bligvul. The ashpo be so great. Described in this passage, all will say, it's enough. The ashpo itself is enough and more. They brought enough and beyond. So this is the second Pirush in Shem Shaddai. The first Pirush is, when was that? Beginning of creation. This is a higher level. By his removal of his barriers, so this was revealed, a level of godliness that was not revealed at the outset, but it's still part of Shem Shaddai, and still Memalek Alamin. Let me explain what that is. We see Taka, the Mishnah invokes and Nikel Shaddai and walk before me and be a whole as a result of what? Of the Milah. Still it falls short of Shem Havaya. And not just falling short, but it's completely incomparable leap. Omnam gam Hashem shin dal yishin zgal la'ov shedai b'lekosei lochal beria who gilish and did vakbala. End of the day, even that which the others achieved is still finite. Now comes the radical change of Shem Havai b'Yitzias Mitzrayim. Shezehu inyan shel yitzim going out of all limitations. Kidu kishem kidu as its own shekeshem sheyesh Mitzrayim do lumas. And we say all limitations, we don't just mean of negative ones, because it's known just like there's limitations in lumas and the opposite of holiness. K'meikin yesh Mitzrayim b'kedusha. There are limitations in holiness. And these limitations in holiness, from there, the limitations in godliness, though he's going this far, not budging, and even though it's beautiful and it's holy, but that is the origin of Mitzrayim Kipshuta, of negative limitations, of a real restraint, of a real prison. He's in a gilded prison, but it's a prison. What's Yitzias Mitzrayim? We call him Mitzad Megvulim. He breaks out of all limitations, even the limitations of Kedusha. Now for the explanation. Okay, we'll start. Right, so this is basically what we learned earlier with a few more diyukim. More riches in the Demachseure. So from the perspective of Akbal of Tzimtzum Mitzad Megvulim, Bereshis Bodali Kibbutz Ishmael V'Zor, in other words, Nases Isavas Hadivroyin, B'Eifin Shel Hem V'Hester. So creation comes into being in such a way that it conceals the truth, that God is constantly creating out of nothing, and they were bottled with mitzias. All this is concealed. Even though that all creations have a source above, so they have a source above, why aren't they feeling it? Why aren't we feeling our source? Let's see the shayla. He's far removed like a moshel, like a parable. He's far removed from his source in the spiritual world, just like the moshel completely conceals the idea. The moshel is a moshel of a king, and he had a daughter and a son, which the Rav says the moshel itself, it has to be worked through. It has to be discovered by the Talmud. But the moshel itself is a different world completely and conceals the idea thoroughly. So that's how it is in creation. That's how Hashem created the world. The world is a moshel. It's all a reflection of the divine energies that bring it into being, but those divine energies are completely concealed from the result. Just like, again, the moshel tells you nothing of the idea, not overtly. Like the creation of Oir. Oir is the first thing created. Let's look at it. Hashem said, let there be light. And he separated between light and darkness. Vikeral and he called light day and darkness light. Light and darkness down here. It's only a moshel for light and darkness above. Elsewhere later, look at the sichas. I remember the year that I have to look at that. But there, Bemis, he says, it's not just a moshel, it's pashat nishtalshel. Not simply invoking a moshel. But the properties of light are nishtalshel from Eir Ruchni. Now that could be the chiddush of that sicha then. It was only in this gala then. But at this point, in Gilui Achsidis, it's a moshel. Both things are true. It is a moshel. The Rebbe's Megala, Pnimishdik level there's not a moshel, it's nishtalshel. Because in the case of a moshel in the Rav and the Talmud, the moshel is not nishtalshel from the idea. The moshel is not, it completes something else. He's looking at the world and finding a model and applying it. Nishtalshel means the idea itself just devolves and becomes simpler and simpler and simpler. The idea never devolves into the moshel of the king and the daughter. That's clear. It's not the Indian. It's in there is the idea. But this, you simplify the idea further and further, it will never become the moshel. It's something else employed by which to put the moshel into. Lavush. I'm telling you, the chiddush and that tzich is not what he's saying here. That Ur Gashmi is nishtalshel from Ur Ruchni, which is why it remains still a mystery. Still theories about what light is. Okay, Be'ez Hashem, to be continued on Monday.